I have some wet chalk that I use. That's chalk that like I've made it a little bit wet.
What? I guess, like, do you have any tools? Like, do you bring one of those little humidity things, or like, how do you, I mean, maybe, yeah. How do you understand if today's good and today's the time for some really hard tries?
Yeah, temperature and humidity sensor, although I found that things were changing pretty rapidly at the boulder. And so sometimes the window of time was smaller than I thought it was going to be. But I also have a fan, a leaf blower. I use that temp and humidity monitor a lot to kind of like, and then I regulate it with those devices. And then I have a water bottle usually that I'll put on my hands with water. I have some wet chalk that I use. That's chalk that like I've made it a little bit wet.
What?
To try and increase friction. And that helps a lot. I found that helped a lot in font too, was like using wet chalk a lot. And then I've got chalk that is like kind of new in the bag and tends to not have been exposed to the humidity around. I thought that was helpful in some ways if I needed to alter what the experience was really quickly. And then I use some liquid. I have like 2 or 3 different types of liquid chalk that I use that have different drying components in it. So they're different chalks to start with, and then they have different either it's ethanol alcohol or rubbing alcohol, and then I use rubbing alcohol as well. I have like a sprayer of rubbing alcohol, and that's to get oils off my skin.
Literally, Carl, you kind of blew my mind about how deep you took the mastery, and it's cool seeing you pull these layers back that I didn't even necessarily knew existed. Like, and I've been doing it for a while, and just thinking about how long my chalk bag has been exposed to air and how that might influence the feeling. I know you didn't break it down to exact science, but just even trying it, I just applaud you for that.
The wet chalk thing is something that I've experimented with a lot in the last couple years, and I think I had a chalk bag that I brought to font one year, and I brought a couple chalk bags with me, and one of them got wet. It got left in a pad in the rain, and it got soaked. And I like had it, and I was like, oh shit, I can't use this. I should just like I'll bring it out and just kind of let it dry out and see what happens or whatever. And then one day it was really cold and really dry, and there was like a dry wind in font. And font is not have very much texture, so everything's pretty slippery. Like, and so when your skin's really dry and the rock's really dry, it just feels like glass. Like you can't hold on to anything. And I kind of understood this idea of sticky damp there, where like you'd have it right after a rain, there'd be like a little bit of moisture like on the surface of the rock, not like soaked in, but just like barely left over kind of humidity that was kind of sticking to the rock, and you'd get this sticky damp feeling where everything felt like Velcro. And so I started playing with that on like a super dry day where I was dipping my hands in like this putty wet chalk and like letting it dry just like a little bit on my hands. And like all of a sudden these problems that I was struggling with that day started to feel like a lot easier. And like maybe it's just like a better version of like the way they were using POF and stuff back in the days, but at least this is like not going to permanently alter the rock and whatnot. So but I was like, man, there's something to this wet chalk thing, like, and I've heard that the Japanese climbers use it in the gym. They've got chalk that has different, like, that has moisture in it and whatnot, and they're using it to stick to the fiberglass in the gym. And I've experimented with it a ton in the gym now on fiberglass and on the holds, and I need it to have a certain level of humidity to feel really good on certain holds. And I think in comps I'm going to start using it more, but bringing like a spray thing with water and wetting my hands. I'm actually wetting my hands now more than like focusing on like the chalk up thing in basically all of my climbing.